Mother here, and I've got a shocking one for you today. This is the continuation of a cautionary tale, but this one is specifically for our country. So please, G-men, pay attention. I'm doing another thought experiment today, and it is this. What could I do if I had bad intentions toward the USA? There's been a lot of speculation on how a possible domestic terrorist would go about taking down the power grid. But isn't our power grid interconnected and protected? Yes, the three major regions are interconnected. Protected from an EMP? No. Protected from domestic terror plots? Another big no. The U.S. power grid is, in fact, highly fragmented and consists of three major regions. The Eastern Interconnection, which operates in states east of the Rocky Mountains. The Western Interconnection, which covers the Pacific Ocean to the Rocky Mountain states. And the Texas Interconnected System. These three separate power grids that are almost completely isolated from one another, electrically speaking. Within each of these regions are interconnected local electricity grids, with multiple ways for the power to flow from generation to load centers. This redundancy seeks to ensure minimal loss of service in case of local failures. The biggest problem with the grid that I see is it's owned by 300 plus for-profit companies. Herding turtles is the best example of getting them to do anything in lockstep, much like the attempt to get all power companies to EMP harden their gear. The corporate quest for profits set this attempt way behind in the rearview mirror as they motored down the road to higher profits and bigger bonuses. Just here in Texas, AccuWeather revealed a price tag of $5 billion to $7 billion for the damage caused when a powerful storm line pushed across the Houston metropolitan area last week. Overall, more than 777,000 outages were reported in Texas, according to PowerOutage.us. Another 90,000 outages were reported in Louisiana. This storm is going down in the record books as one of the costliest disasters, if not in Houston, then in recorded history based on preliminary estimates. Previously, Winter Storm Elliott of 2022 went down in history as the third costliest winter ever since 1950, with an estimated $3.5 billion in losses, according to the Insurance Information Institute. The National Weather Service called that one a once-in-a-generation storm. Now, I'm somehow living much longer than I should, or I'm seeing a lot more of these so-called once-in-a-generation happenings. How fragile is the U.S. power grid? Most of the U.S. electric grid was built in the 1960s and 70s. Around 70% of power transformers and transmission lines are 30 years or older, while their service life is about 50 years. Typically, the pylons will last for about 80 years, whereas the conductors, insulators, and fittings normally last for about 40 years. Our aging system is vulnerable to increasingly intense storms and domestic attacks. If a cyber attack or an EMP attack takes the grid down, then either of these is a bad time a-coming. I think I'm good with USA protecting the power grid from a cyber attack, but an EMP and the party's over. What my concern here is domestic terrorism. What, you say? Not possible. No one thought flying planes into buildings was possible, but it happened. And those guys were legally in the country on visas. Our borders are as porous as a screen door. We have a catch and release program. We catch illegals, give them a date to show up in court, and release them. If I'm not mistaken, only 15% make their initial court date. What? Then there's the 9.5 million plus inside our borders that were not caught, apprehended, and released. We've got no idea who they are and what they're doing or where they're at. Any nation state could be sending operatives into the USA to live their lives and move to specific areas, buy weapons, and be ready when called to link up with others. Get burner phones and plan for a specific number of power station intrusions simultaneously. I think I saw something like that back in 2001 on September 11th. I watched a video once where a Navy SEAL speculated if he had a couple of platoons and the right equipment, he could put this country in the dark within a day, just by attacking 9 specific power transformers. There are more than 55,000 transmission substations in the United States, but an attack on less than 10 could plunge the entire nation into darkness, according to a study by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And that, folks, is our government confirming what I just stated. This is our Achilles heel. Our electrical system is fragile. Don't you like flipping a switch and voila, let there be light? However, just in the past decade, there have been over 700 physical attacks against the U.S. electric grid. In 2020, the FBI uncovered a white supremacist plot called Lights Out to simultaneously attack substations around the country. We dodged a bullet there, we did. Thank you, G-Men. Now, the FBI is not a 100% sure thing on domestic terror attempts. The attack on a power substation in Metcalfe, California began just before 1 a.m. on April 16, 2013, when someone slipped into an underground vault not far from a busy freeway and cut telephone cables. Within 30 minutes, individuals opened fire on the substation with high-powered rifles. 100 expended 7.62 by 39mm cases were found, and rounds damaging 17 substations that supplied power to Silicon Valley, causing them the loss of 52,000 gallons of oil. The culprits escaped, or rather just walked off, 1 minute before the police arrived on site and have never been captured. The $250,000 FBI reward still remains unclaimed on this incident, which resulted in more than $15 million worth of damage. That means there's a unit afoot that has good OPSEC and dedication, and now with real-world experience on successfully taking down a substation and transformers. Attacks and suspicious activity at U.S. power stations reached a decade-long high last year, with more than 100 reported incidents in the first 8 months of 2022. Here's where I think 19 men with a purpose that are well-funded could create a nightmare, a literal nightmare. My fear is an informed, coordinated, simultaneous attack on multiple transformer substations could easily shut down part of the grid, if not all of it. It gets better. All the transformers inside the USA are not a stocked item. They're made mostly overseas and domestically upon order and can take up to a year or better to manufacture. I've learned in some cases there's a back order and wait time now for over a year before work can even start on a new order. So add that into your thinking. Now, pause and think. If the government gets the power back on in a year, or even 3 years, and that would be a miracle if it could be done in 3 years, what will we have left? How many dead in, say, a 6-month power outage? It would surely clear out the oldest people, the stupid people. The ignorant would have little chance for that to be cured, since they will not be given time and opportunity. The folks with anything chronic that requires medication, gone. The mentally ill keeping steady with drugs would be left in a bad state. The diabetics would be gone. Any medical issue managed by drugs, nope, not happening. Have you got your Jace case? Vaccine production will halt, so the young would be susceptible to diseases that were once cured or prevented. I see the left blaming the right and vice versa. And I see many people asking the question, what type of American are you? How many decisions will you have made or rounds you sent downrange that you may have to answer for? Thanks for watching. Look for part 3 of this series as I explore what other means of bad intentions can come to fruition in our lifetime. Oh yes. Until then, hit that subscribe button. I got miles to go before I sleep.